I find that hard to believe, but, here we are. I just saw scrolling through X, not Twitter, X, during the break there, and I saw, the 49ers met, the Giants met yesterday with Yamamoto. I'm like, cool. They met with him. Every other big market team is going to meet with him, and he's not going to sign in San Francisco. It's maddening. It's maddening, I say, to see my team linked to, now, to be fair, it could be worse. My team could not even be meeting with these big free agents. They could not be in the conversation, albeit, minimal chance. They could completely not have any chance. My team, it could have been like the A's, and they could have moved. I understand it. I'm speaking from a place, not of privilege. I don't want to say I'm privileged, but I will say I'm acting like a petulant, spoiled child. My team's got 3 titles in the last 13 years. Progressively, as we go farther along here, it's more and more time. And those 3 titles in 5 years, it becomes a much bigger gap, and it sounds a little less sexy. But I've seen my team win 3 times since 2010, so that's cool. But I'd like them to actually sign one of these players and not just be, quote, unquote, in on one of these players. All right, I'm Dominic Jimenez. Thanks so much for taking some time and joining me today. Full show tomorrow. Lots of guests, and they're all fantastic, but it's going to be highlighted by, for me, John Michael Higgins, the actor and television game show host. He'll be joining me tomorrow. Up next, Wrestling Observer Live with Brian Alvarez and Mike Semperview.
Yeah, man, I hope we don't have brain damage.
Coach Harvey Hyde is heard right here on KSHP North Las Vegas, AM and FM, K29, 6HP North Las Vegas, and KSHP.com.
For the grinders who rise before the sun, the predators who stalk the odds, the winners who demand an edge.
You're listening to the boss of the big ball, JP the Ticket.
Listen every weekend, Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to Vegas Scoreboard Express live on KSHP 107.1 FM and AM 1400 as I unleash a barrage of insightful analysis, expert predictions, and winning strategies from the sharpest minds in sports betting to get your money back from the sports books. Go to jptheticket.com and tune in to KSHP this weekend, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to win with the Sharps. JP the Ticket. Vegas Scoreboard Express. All money, all sports, no bull. Missed the live show? Subscribe to Vegas Scoreboard Express on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast and radio listening.
Banachek, the greatest mentalist alive. He's the #1 mind-reading act in the world. Joe Rogan calls Banachek the best I've ever seen. Banachek's Mind Games Live, taking mind reading to new heights at the Strat Hotel, Casino, and Skypod, Las Vegas.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
All right, what's up, everybody? Hope everybody had a great weekend. Happy Monday. I know I did. Sorry for all those Raider fans out there that... by the way, and Minnesota Viking fans that spent money for that football game. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. They're saying arguably it's the worst NFL game in NFL history. There's a reason for that. Scott Gulbransen, the co-creator of the Silver and Black Today podcast, will be joining us in hour number 2. Chris Winn will be joining us in studio as well. Lakers winning the midseason NBA basketball tournament. We're going to be talking about that. UNLV basketball with a tough loss over the weekend as well. VGK hockey with a nice come-from-behind win. Well, not really come from behind. They were down 1 goal, and then they were up 2, and then it went to overtime. But we'll talk about that, as I mentioned. Chris Winn's going to be joining us in studio, so we'll get to all the sports action over the weekend. But, I've been talking a lot about the terrible tragedy that took place on Wednesday on the UNLV campus. National story, mass shooting, 3 innocent people dead, the shooter killed by police, by campus police. And, I'm getting sick and tired of talking about these mass shootings over and over and over again, especially when it hits home. But it's important to talk about the heroes. It's important to talk about the victims. And it's also important to talk about the people that were on campus that had to go through what they went through on Wednesday. So I wanted to get that perspective. Lovely lady joining us in studio right now. Her name is Mia Green. She is a junior at UNLV. And she also covers UNLV athletics, and she does a great job in doing that. And she was on campus at the time of that shooting. Mia, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you here, and I'm glad you weren't hurt. I'm glad you weren't one of those people, sadly, that were injured or lost their lives, but I do appreciate you being here. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, a scary, one of the probably the most scariest moments of my life. And after that, everything's just different. Campus was different. I did have work today on campus, so that was different as well. But otherwise, I'm doing okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I appreciate you being here to give your perspective. All right, let's rewind. Let me just get this right. You're a junior. You're attending UNLV. Sports journalism is your major. Wednesday's just another day, right? You wake up in the morning. You're going to class. When is your first class on Wednesday?
So I actually don't have classes on Wednesday.
Okay.
I was working 8 to 2. Typically, I would work 8 to 12, but somehow that shift happened to be 8 to 2. And woke up, normal day, just went to work, hanging out, talking with my coworker, assisting students that come in, and next thing you know, it was chaos.
So before the chaos, 11 o'clock a.m. hour, what building are you in?
I'm in the Academic Success Center, which is about a 4-minute walk from the initial shots.
So you're literally not even a block away from where the initial shots. Okay, so we're told that the first shots rang out sometime around 11:45 a.m. Where are you? You're in that building at 11:45 a.m. And when did you first find out what was going on?
At 11:45 a.m., I did hear some noise. I couldn't quite make out what it was, but I heard something. And the campus is loud. I just figured it was, I don't know, noise, maintenance, who knows. And so I avoided it, and then approximately, I believe it was 11:54 area, we got a text from the campus police saying that there was an active shooter on campus. But previously, probably about 1 minute before that, I had two students run into the building, and they were screaming that there was a shooter, and me and my coworker up front were trying to figure out what we need to do. We end up calling our boss, and that's whenever the text hits.
What goes through your mind? Because you know what's going on in the world, especially in this country, with all these mass shootings that take place, whether it be a middle school or a high school or a mall or October 1. What's the first thing that enters your mind when you see that text message from campus police that say there is an active shooter on the UNLV campus? Because for me, I'd be like, oh my God, is this really happening? Is this reality? Am I really in one of these? What goes through your mind when you see that?
It was mostly a fight or flight type of emotion. I sat there, I looked at the text, and I was like, this doesn't feel real. You see it all over the country, you see it, but it's different whenever you get a text to your personal phone. And my first thought was, let me text my family. The first thing I did was text my family group chat and say, there's an active shooter on campus. I am safe. I'm in my work building, but I am on campus, but I'm safe. That's the first thing I did.
Wow. Okay, so you see students coming in. They're communicating with you that, and this is a classroom that you're in?
No, it's like a front. I work front desk, and there's academic advisors and the dean, and
Gotcha.
There is 2 classrooms in the building, but at that time there was no class going on, and it was just me and my coworker up front.
And the students that are running in, they're saying there's an active shooter. Did they say anything else to you?
No, we didn't have any information at that point. That they came in right before the text got sent, and so I'm not sure really how they found out or what happened. I just know that they had came in, rushing in, telling us there's an active shooter. We had no clue
Gotcha.
where no clue where, no clue of the proximity of it, how close it was. I mean, of course, like
you don't
I
have
said,
a lot of answers, which makes things worse.
That was scary. That
you
was
don't know
definitely
if
the
a
worst
shooter
part.
is going to come right into your building.
Right.
You have no idea. You're not armed, right?
Right.
And you hear these students coming in frantic, saying that there's an active shooter. You know it's real because you get the text message from campus police. So you know this is real. This isn't a farce. What do you do next? Because I'd be freaking out. Do you hide? Do you run? Where are you going? What are you doing?
At that point, I was actually about to eat my lunch, and I just had everything sitting on my desk. And the first thing we did is go into the locked side of our building, which there's like a button that you have to press in the front desk that can get you to that side of the building. So my boss came out to the front area, and we had pretty much all moved to that locked side of our building and got in rooms and just
so you're locked
sat
in a
and wait.
room. I just think to myself, what would be going through my mind at that time? You know, if I'm locked in a room, we don't have all the answers, yet we know that there's an active shooter on campus. We don't know what type of weapon they have. We don't know if they're targeting people or they're just trying to kill as many people as possible. I would be freaking out. That's just me. My anxiety level would be at a 10. Are you texting your friends and your family? Like, what are you doing at that point?
Yeah, at that point, the first thing I was doing is I was texting my friends and my family. I was seeing where my close friends were that, like, I know. I was like, are you guys on campus? Of course, my phone is blowing up. I have texts coming through, calls coming through. All my close people are pretty much texting and calling me like, are you okay? Like, I just heard about this. I just saw it on the news or stuff like that. And so I was pretty much just texting family, friends, making sure everyone was all right. And it so happened to be that of my close friends, I was the only one on campus, which was a relief on my end, knowing that all of my close people were okay, but it's also scary because I didn't really know what was going on.
And you don't even have classes on Wednesday, but you're working that day.
Right.
You know, and okay. So how long are you in that room before somebody gets you guys? And how many people are in the room with you?
There was about, I would say, 15 to 20.
Okay, so a substantial amount of people that
Yeah,
are just in
we're sitting.
And you're in the same boat they're in. You
Yeah.
don't know really what's going
Nobody
on
knows
except
what's
there's an
going
active
on.
shooter, which is very scary.
Yeah.
So how long are you in there for?
We were in there for, I think it was about 3 hours.
You were locked in this room for 3 hours?
Yeah, and my phone, the
Oh
worst
my
part about it and the
goodness.
scariest part about it was that my phone was less than 20% and I didn't have my charger. It was up front, and so
Is
I
anybody
was,
of the group calling 911, trying to get answers, or calling the police? No.
Everybody was we were just sitting around waiting for more text to come through, and the most common notification was just continue to shelter in place. This was after.
For 3 hours?
Yeah, and we had seen, like, of course, a lot of us were, like, looking on Twitter and, like, looking at Metro's Twitter and seeing what's posting, UNLV's Twitter.
And there's not a lot of information out there.
No, there wasn't.
And it's interesting because I was actually on Wednesday at the NBA press conferences, and I was interviewing like Giannis, and then all these people go into these press conferences, the Pacers, and while I'm there at around noon, I see the Metro Twitter account, and it's kind of eerie because the first thing that I thought about was October 1, because when October 1 happened, you go to the Metro Twitter account, it was very similar: multiple injuries, active shooter, shelter in place. We don't know if that means 50 people are killed or 100 people are killed or no injuries. We just don't know. So I'm not locked and sheltered in a room either. So it's a very different circumstances to what you're going through. Was anybody freaking out in there? I mean, you got 15 or 20 people. Can you describe that to me?
There was 3 kids who had gotten sick.
When you say gotten sick,
as
what do you
in
mean?
vomit.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Don't
blame them, by the way. Don't blame them.
I was honestly just trying to stay calm. Like, I am one of those people that get paranoid, freaked out very easily, but I just
You kept it together.
sat there and I was trying. I mean, of course I was working, and so I was more trying. I wasn't obviously working at the time, but I was on shift, and so I was trying to sit there and just make sure everyone was okay, and it was just a surreal moment that is never going to be erased from my memory.
Another normal day. Let's rewind here. You're working. You're at the front, of this building. All of a sudden, you get the messages on your phone from campus police that there's an active shooter situation. By the way, thank God they have that in place where they could at least give you that information. You have students that are running in saying there's an active shooter. You lock yourself into a room with 15 to 20 other students. Several of those students are vomiting. They're freaking out. You don't have any answers. All you know is that there's an active shooter. You're in that room for 3 hours. That is torture. Can you explain to me the moment that you are let out of the room? What happens?
We're sitting there, and at this point, I'm in the front. We had gotten the notification that police will be coming to our buildings one by one. And at that point, we're just sitting there waiting around. And the next thing you know, the SWAT team comes to our door, the front door, and they're basically just telling us the procedure. We're going to go to Thomas and Mack, tell us to walk with our hands up and our hands visibly seen. And we walked over to Thomas and Mack. And from there, it was just surreal. I mean, you're looking around. My concern is there another person? Is there somebody that we don't? I have no idea what's going on. I don't know.
And police don't know either. They're still I'm trying to get everything together. Right.
I'm clueless. I'm just looking around, trying to be cautious of my surroundings, despite the fact that there was 30 SWAT members around me. It was still scary just being outside. And then from there, of course, we went to Thomas and Mack Center, and I walked all the way around Thomas and Mack Center to get picked up to where the road wasn't closed because of the National Finals Rodeo. The road was closed as to where my friends came to pick me up, and just went home. And
are police patting you down? Is anybody patting you down at that point? That's interesting. I would assume, and this is an assumption at that point, they assume that there's only one shooter. Mm-hmm. They probably spoke to some witnesses, and we know that the shooter was gunned down. But when I think of the images of people with their hands up, walking out of a classroom, I think of Columbine. I think of Uvalde. I think of so many of these school shootings. And is that going through your mind? Because you're thinking to yourself, I'd be thinking, oh my God, I'm in one of these situations now, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking. It was like, I'm actually from New Mexico, and there was a school shooting near me.
Right.
And so I'm just thinking, wow, now I'm sitting here, and this is real. This is me. This is my experience, not what I'm hearing on the news, not what I'm seeing from my friends, not anything that's out publicly. This is actually happening to me, and I'm going to be the one telling my story, not hearing somebody else's.
I mean, Mia, that's traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something I would imagine you ever forget.
No.
And you think about, and now we've learned a lot of information since then, of course, of what happened. What goes through your mind when you hear of the 3 innocent professors, one 39 years old, beautiful young lady. We see these other 2 professors who had distinguished careers, well-educated people, did great things on campus, and wonderful families. What goes through your mind when you hear about these 3 victims?
Their families.
Yeah.
Their families. The first thing I think of, it's right before the holidays. Now they're having to plan a funeral and not celebrate Christmas.
And you think to yourself, my gosh, I could have been in that building. He could have chosen another building, because what we're learning is that the shooter, and I am not going to say his name, but the shooter who decided to kill innocent people that day, these not that this makes it better or worse, it doesn't, but these weren't even people on his hit list. We're learning that he was calculated, that he was going in there trying to kill specific people for whatever crazy reason. It could have been you. I mean, does that go through your mind?
Yeah, of course. Like I said earlier, I was actually supposed to get off at 12, and I live close to campus, and if I would have gotten off at 12, I would have walked right through that pathway at that exact time. So I would have been out there stranded, probably running for help, probably fleeing campus. I probably wouldn't have ran into a building. But yeah, that thing, that I think about that all the time. Of course, that's the number one thing that my family thinks about. Of course, texting the family group chat. Everybody's like, I love you, please keep texting me. And my mom, of course, my parents are panicking. They live 8 hours away. They felt so helpless, and there's nothing they could do but hope that I make it out alive.
Yeah, and I'm glad you did, but people forget, yes, there are 3 victims, but there are more than 3 victims. 3 people lost their lives. But there are victims like what you're talking about, people like you, people that were vomiting and had anxiety when they were in that classroom, the families, the friends. When you drive to school, this is what you think about, right? And that can't ever, leave your mind. So people, when they say 3 victims, yes, 3 people lost their lives, but there's plenty of more victims than just 3 people, right? And you know that you know that firsthand, right? I mean, it just that's what I think about. Let me ask you this: on a positive side to this, and I know you had said you know one of the campus police officers that's a hero of the two. I believe there were two. Correct me if I'm wrong. The suspect, well, the shooter, let's just call him what it is. My understanding, based on the Metro press conferences, is that the shooter's walking out of that building with his gun. And those two people, one of them you know personally, those two heroes, campus police officers, risked their life and engaged the suspect within 70 seconds or so from the shooting, which is unbelievable, by the way, because when we look at a lot of these other shootings, minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, every second counts, right? And they engaged the suspect immediately and killed the suspect, the shooter. I can't even imagine how many more people could have died if they didn't do that. And I just think in our society in this day and age, we do not praise officers enough. It doesn't matter whether they're campus police or Metro police, whoever. I mean, I would imagine you must be very proud of this person that you're a friend of, and there were two of them that engaged the suspect and saved lives.
Yeah, I mean, regardless if I knew the officers, I would be extremely grateful that they were there and they responded quickly because, I mean, I wasn't far from it. My first thought is he going to go to another building? Is my building going to be that next building? And I mean, he would have had to get to through three locked doors to get to me. But I mean,
with a gun, that's not hard.
Yeah, and I mean that many just in a room like that. My first thoughts is if he finds my building, if he finds my room, anywhere, if I'm gone.
Do you think students should be allowed to carry? And I didn't want to really bring you in here to talk about gun control issues. I wanted you to share your story, which I appreciate. But would you feel more safe if people like yourself would be allowed to carry on campus, or do you think that would be worse? What are your thoughts on that?
Personally, I won't speak about gun control. And I won't speak about whether or not I feel like it would be safer or not safer to have students carrying, because I feel like that's a very controversial topic and I don't want to speak about it.
I mean, it shouldn't be controversial. Let me say it like that. It shouldn't be controversial. I don't want innocent people to die, and I know you don't. We all want to feel safe, right? And again, those two officers, those campus police officers are heroes, and I cannot wait to speak with them. I cannot wait to thank them. I cannot wait to praise them for what they did. But I don't think it should be controversial. You're right. It is controversial. I don't think it should. And again, I didn't bring you here to talk about gun control or talk about controversial issues. I'll leave that to me to do that. But in short, I'll say this. What we're doing in this country isn't working. I think you'll agree with me. Innocent people are dying every day. Gun violence is at an all-time high in this country, and we have 140 guns per 100 people in this country. That's a problem. I think we all can disagree and have discussion on how we make it safer, and that's okay. I don't think that's controversial. I think we should all be continuing to talk about it, and it's unfortunate that some people don't want to do anything about it. You were in Las Vegas October 1?
No.
You were not. Okay. I was, of course, and over 60 people died that day, right? And that brought me back to October 1, and I remember the Sandy Hook shooting in Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. A bunch of 8 and 9-year-old kids shot up, Have there been any conversations, or I don't want to use the term protests, but any students gathering talking about gun control, or it's too early, or that's not really a topic?
Not to my knowledge, no. I mean, of course, there's posts on social media, but I don't engage with it. So
yeah, is it you don't talk about gun control, as you said, because it's controversial and you don't want to get into a debate, or is it you're indifferent to the topic? Or I'm curious.
I just don't talk about it because it's controversial, and as a student journalist, a lot of people can create a bunch of different ideas about somebody just based on maybe a few sentences that they say. And as a student journalist, your opinion is not, in your reporting, reporting is supposed to be unbiased. And with that, I'm very cautious with what I do, what I say on a day-to-day basis, not just because like uncontroversial topic settings. In every topic settings, I'm very cautious about what I say, especially like in a public setting. I'm not going to say anything that would ever come back and get me 20 years down the line when they see that I said something about whatever it may be. I'm just trying to stay neutral with everything.
I understand that. With that being said, if the shooter, and this is a hypothetical, went into your building, one could make the argument nobody would have been there to defend you. Nobody would have been there. You wouldn't have been able to defend yourself, and nobody else in that building would have been. So just to be clear, I'm not anti-gun. I think everybody should have the right to defend themselves. Now, I have a lot of opinions that I know you don't want to get into, so I won't do that. I have a lot of opinions on how we could become safer as a society when it comes to gun control. But I'm sure you're, as I would be, and I'm sure you are, very thankful for those officers that risked their lives and are heroes. They could have been killed, right? They could have been killed. They engaged the suspect. And when I think of like Uvalde, Texas, and I think of some cops that, I hate to use this term, but I'm just going to, cowards that allow things to progress and they're, they think of themselves before others. These two officers obviously didn't do that. And they should be praised for that. And I don't think we're getting enough of that in the media, unfortunately. You didn't know the suspect, is that correct?
No, I had no clue who he was.
Did any of your friends or anybody know him at all?
No.
And this was a guy who, I guess, was a professor at other universities, but not this university, right?
To my knowledge, no, he wasn't a professor. None of my friends knew him.
Did you know any of the victims?
No.
Any of your friends?
My friend did know one of the victims. Yeah, a student.
That's got to be.
She was a student of
very
his.
hard. I can't imagine how hard that is. I hate to use the term getting back to normal. I know that the UNLV basketball game was canceled on the road. Athletics were canceled. What do you make of the decision of the university to cancel exams? Final exams, right?
Yeah, I thought it was the right thing to do. Honestly, after the experience that, well, I mean, of course it would be different for somebody who wasn't on campus versus somebody who was, but either way, it was a very traumatic experience for the entire Rebel community, and trying to think of taking a final after that, I don't even know.
I agree with you. It was absolutely the right decision. The people that have anxiety, that PTSD,
right.
There are more important things in life right now to take care of people like you than studying for an exam. So I agree with you 100%. I think it was the right decision. I mean, I'm just going to ask you this in general, and this doesn't have anything to do with gun control, but just in general. What type of country are we living in when college students, or whoever, in this case, college student like yourself, wakes up in the morning and goes to a campus and doesn't feel safe? I mean, what? How do you make sense of that? I can't. Like, how do you answer that when someone says, "Oh my God, now you're gonna, feel unsafe, going to campus on the UNLV"? Like, how do you respond to that?
Honestly, I don't know. It's something that it's the world we live in, and it's scary and frightful to even say that. And I mean, I think, I don't know, 10 years down the road, what about kids that I raise, my family, my younger family members? It's crazy and scary to think of what this world might turn into, given the fact that it is how it is now. And it's frightening. And like I said, I did have work today, so that was totally unnormal. I mean, doors were locked. It was just weird.
Yeah, what's the campus like right now? Can you explain that? You said
Empty.
doors are locked. It's empty. What is that like?
It's an eerie feeling. You just sit there and you look outside, and usually, I mean, like, we have a glass door that's in front of my building, and you can see students out there. You can see, maintenance people out there, and you just look out there and there's nobody. And it's just empty. I mean, the parking garage, usually I walk to work, but the parking garage was empty. Everything was empty, and you just sit there and look around and just realize that it's not normal and it's not going to be.
It's almost like, I hate to compare different circumstance, but COVID, when I was driving down the strip and going down on Fremont Street when everything was closed and eerie. It was like scary, eerie, weird, like movie type feeling
Right.
when everything was closed, right? So you're saying on the UNLV campus right now, it's kind of like that same feel, huh?
Yeah. I wasn't here in Vegas for COVID. I was actually in my hometown at that point. I was still in high school. But it's just the same. It just feels like a ghost town, ghost campus. And I mean, sometimes it's a different feeling from it being a ghost and empty campus after a tragedy versus a standard day ghost and empty campus. Because I mean, I go to work early. My building opens at 8. I'm leaving my house at 7:30. I walk on campus with barely any people, seeing any people. But whenever there's a different reasoning behind it, it's a different feeling.
And the building where the shooting happened, I would imagine that's not opening up anytime soon.
I have no word on that. I know it was closed up until Sunday. I don't know if it's open now. I don't know.
Have you talked to any students that actually saw the shooting happen? You don't know of anybody that actually watched it. I can't even imagine.
I know of like classmates that were around the area, but as far as my close people, everyone was at home or off campus.
Interesting. And when you get that text message, is every student on that text message list? Okay, well, that's good. That's really important. That probably saved lives to begin with. The way UNLV's handled this whole thing, how would you grade them?
I think they've done a good job.
Yeah.
They did the best they can do. I think the decision to not have final exams and have that as an optional thing or in a way to, I guess, boost your grade, that was probably the best decision. Of course, all the resources that they've been giving, I have not taken advantage of those personally, but they've given away admission to free things, or free admission to things. So that has been something that's been a distracting thing for me. Me and my roommates and friends, we've gone to the things that they've given us free admission to, and that's kind of kept me busy and not thinking of it.
And I want to talk about that next segment because a lot of organizations, not just UNLV Athletics and the NBA, but and the Raiders have really done a great tribute and have helped. I definitely want to talk to you about that. This might be a tough question for you to answer, even though you weren't physically injured. This is a mental thing for a lot of people that it's almost impossible to ever get over, for the rest of your life. If you had the opportunity to speak to the shooter, obviously he is deceased. But if you had the opportunity to speak to him after this horrible incident, what would you say?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't talk to him?
No.
You wouldn't say a word. Why?
It's not my place. If I was in a different circumstance, I mean, obviously we'll never know why. That's everybody's biggest question, but I personally don't have the need to speak to him.
Understood. On the other side of things, talking about the two heroes that engaged the suspect and ended the threat, what would you say to them?
Thank you. That's it. There's just continuous thank you for saving lives. I mean, they put their lives in harm's way to save others, and it's the amount of thank you couldn't ever be equivalent to what needs to be said.
And this is just like days after, as I'm sure you've heard, 2 Metro police officers were killed by a drunk driver. They were just doing their job, helping somebody on the side of the road, and just like that, their life is over. And listen, there were great tributes in town and all that, but listen, I call out bad policing when I hear about it and when I see it, but we usually don't hear about the good policing. And I want more of that out there, and I try to do it, right? Those 2 officers that lost their lives, they were doing their job. They were helping somebody on the side of the road. These 2 officers could have been killed. Let's be honest. Thank God they weren't on the UNLV campus, these 2 campus police officers. And like I said, you never know the number, but I think we all could probably agree they saved lives. This guy had already shot and killed 3 people, shot 4 people, actually. I think the 4th person's going to be okay, thank goodness. He's walking out of the building. Who knows where he goes next? Who knows who he engages next? Obviously, he's demented and he's not thinking clearly and has no regard for human life. He just shot 4 people, killed 3 innocent people. You can't really put a number on that, but I mean, these are the type of officers that I would want representing me, right? And there's got to be a sense of pride there. I hope that they have some sort of ceremony when all the dust is cleared and the investigation's over. I know they're on paid leave. That's just standard procedure. We all saw the video. We know what these two officers did. Would you like to see some sort of ceremony, get together, whether it be Thomas and Mac, or maybe the community comes together and honor these two officers and maybe some of the victims? Like, is that something that maybe you'd like to see? I know it's still early because this just happened on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea, but I also think it's important to consider those two officers' emotions at this time as well. I mean, obviously it's a traumatic experience for the rebel community, but I can't imagine how it was for them.
Absolutely,
So.
and that's a really good point, and that would be their decision, and I would want to leave that up to them. Absolutely, we need some time. Last question on this that I would ask you. For people that don't know, they don't know what you endured, they don't know what you went through, and yes, they look at the 3 victims that lost their lives and the 4th victim that was shot. For people that just don't understand and don't know what that day was like for you, what would you want to tell them?
Be cautious of everyone who was involved emotions. I mean, obviously the world we live in has become a scary place, especially, I mean, for a woman, a young woman at that. I cautious of my surroundings everywhere, but being cautious of everyone's emotions, whether they were on campus, whether they were not on campus, just anybody, the entire UNLV community, just be cautious of everybody's emotions, because not everybody's going through the same thing, not everybody's processing it the same way, and I mean, everybody experienced something different. Like I said, whether they were at home, whether they were off campus, whether they were on campus, everybody's going through something different. So being cautious of everybody's emotions and the sensitive topic that surrounds this tragedy is, I think, most important. And like mental health, of course.
Mia, I think that's very well said. I certainly couldn't have said it any better, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I want to get your story, and I want to talk to others, and I certainly I would love to get the chance to talk to the heroes that day who saved lives as well. But I think I agree with you too. UNLV has done a really good job. They've made all the right decisions. 3 innocent lives lost, or 3 too many. But it could have even been worse, and I know it's hard to imagine that, but at the same time, I'm proud of my community, and I'm proud of UNLV for handling it the way they have. All right, it's always difficult to make the transition from a horrible tragedy to sports, but sometimes sports helps the healing process. So let's talk a little bit about that when we come back. I'll take a quick break, and you are a sports reporter there at UNLV, which is really cool. I feel really old because I did that like 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, but I want to talk to you about UNLV football. I want to talk to you about UNLV basketball, and I also want to talk about how the communities come together, all the organizations here in honoring, UNLV and those that have lost their lives. So we'll take a quick break. If you're just joining us, she is Mia Green. She's a junior at UNLV and was on the campus during that horrible tragedy that took place on Wednesday. We'll talk a little sports when we come back. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. Tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
The Klondike Casino is a friendly local spot that features their signature restaurant, the Klondike Grill, serving up fresh food fast. Open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner just off the 95 freeway on Sunset Road in Henderson. You will find the Klondike Casino featuring all your favorite games from the Strip in the comfort of a neighborhood casino. You can place a bet at their full-service sports book or start your day with a breakfast plate that comes with your choice of potato and toast. Or check us out for lunch or dinner and try one of our many sandwiches like the popular beer-battered fish sandwich or the Philly cheesesteak. Check out the full menu at KlondikeSunset.com.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been... Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Zen World Premium CBD offers full and broad spectrum CBD oil, extracts, and capsules which are designed to help you feel your best. Their products are sourced from the best organic hemp and natural ingredients on the market and are tested for quality, purity, and potency. They have a full range of items from health and wellness to beauty to pets. Call 725-205-9223. Visit online at zenworld.com or stop by their location at 9895 South Maryland Parkway and Silverado Ranch Parkway. Mention KSHP for 10% off in store or use code KSHP online for 15% off.
It's a holiday food and toy drive. Help us give joy to the families staying at Ronald McDonald House, Las Vegas. We are accepting donations of new, unused, and unwrapped gifts for families. We're also accepting non-perishable food items for 3 Square. And KSHP is a drop-off location at 2400 South Jones and Sahara from Monday through Friday, noon to 6 p.m. It's a holiday food and toy drive, sponsored by the Wallace Group, Cross Country Mortgage.
Welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Programming note, guy who's running for Congress, I think we're going to get into some very good debate tomorrow. Drew Johnson's going to be coming in studio. He's running for Congress as a Republican. He's a big MAGA supporter. So that's going to be fun. Coming up in hour number 2, Chris Wynn's going to be joining us. I guess that'll be fun too. I don't know. Scott Gulbransen's going to be joining us as well in hour number 2 from the Silver and Black Today podcast. Arguably the worst NFL game in the history of the league. And the Raiders played the game at home, and the Golden Knights scored how many goals yesterday? I think it was, well, technically it was 4 goals plus an overtime shootout. So they scored more than the Raiders did, which is absolutely pathetic. We'll talk about that coming up in hour number 2. Joining us in studio right now, she is Mia Green. She is a junior, a student at UNLV. Just found out she was on an academic scholarship, so certainly much smarter than I am, that's for sure. I was on an athletic scholarship. I wasn't smart enough to get an academic scholarship. And sadly, she was on campus during the shootings that took place on Wednesday at UNLV. But, I wanted to switch topics a little bit because Mia is studying to become a reporter, sports journalism. And before I get to UNLV athletics, because I know you cover the UNLV men's, women's basketball team, and of course the football team, they've had a great year. What are your thoughts on the way the Raiders honored the victims, the UNLV victims. UNLV basketball did it at the game the other day, which we'll talk about. UNLV ladies with a huge win on the road against Ohio, right? What a job LaRock is doing. And the NBA had a wonderful tribute. And I think they gave out like 300 tickets to students, which is so awesome. What do you think of all these entities that have really, I think, have done a great job? I didn't even mention the Blues. When the Knights were on the road, the Blues honored UNLV as well. I just think it's been really nice to see. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. It's so nice to see. It's so nice to, like, as a part of the UNLV community and, of course, as a student. The Raiders actually did give away 100 free tickets as well. And then, of course, the NBA in-season tournament, there was tickets given away to that. And I think it's just so important for the entire Las Vegas community to come together. And I love to see the Raiders pitching in, the NBA pitching in, UNLV, the other athletic programs. I just think it's so important for the Las Vegas community to come together during this difficult time.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it was really nice to see, no doubt. And it reminded me again of October 1 when the Vegas Golden Knights honored the victims and everybody in the community came together. All right, do you want to start talking a positive or a negative when it comes to UNLV athletics right now? Which should we bring up first? I'm going to give you the option. Positive or negative first?
Let's go positive.
Okay, good. UNLV football, and we'll get to UNLV women's basketball too. What a job, and I'm sure you would agree. You've covered UNLV football this year. I've been here 20 years. This is a team that's been very, very bad. They've gone to one bowl game in, the last 12 years when Caleb Herring was the QB. It's a football program that has been a disaster. Coach Arroyo was the wrong guy for the job. I said that from day one. And then Odom comes in here. And the first time he does my radio show before the season starts, he said he'd been to 30 schools recruiting in the first 2 weeks of his tenure. And I said, wow, this is the right guy for the job. I did not say he would turn it around in 1 year. What do you think of this guy making it to a bowl game, almost winning the conference? He was right there. It's really miraculous. And then we got a quarterback who went to Liberty High School. I mean, it's just the story's unbelievable. What do you make of what Odom has done this year? I just think it's been miraculous.
Phenomenal. That's to say the least. I mean, me personally, I attended every single UNLV football fall camp. So I seen what he's done from day one to what he's still continuing to do. And my favorite part and thing that he's done is change the mindset of these players and how he's brought in the winning football mindset. That's not even the most important part. The most important part is that how he's changed them as men. He talks about life outside of football. He's mentioned it several times in his press conferences. Just his mindset and how he outlooks life. He's a family guy. That's important. And so he has a very big emphasis on that as a team. And I feel like the team has just came together a lot closer as a family. They're playing more for each other. And of course, like the players referring to each other as brothers, that was new. I hadn't really heard that last season.
Right.
So that Odom's just done an impeccable, phenomenal job. I can't even, to say the least.
And that's why I agree with everything you said. And that's why he's the Mountain West College Coach of the Year. And that's why he is a finalist for a National Coach of the Year. I think if he had won the last couple games, he would have to be the National Coach of the Year. He's still right there. With that being said, obviously you don't want to lose the last 3 games of the year. It's phenomenal that UNLV's in a bowl game. Don't get me wrong. Kansas is a good football team. I think it's a really tough matchup for UNLV because Kansas, particularly on their offense, they're very similar to a Boise State type team with their potent offense. What are your thoughts on this game in this bowl, and do you think UNLV can come out with the W?
Honestly, every game I think they can come out with a W. It depends on a lot of different aspects. I mean, offensively, defensively, special teams, that's been a big part of UNLV football this year. And I do think they can come out with the W. I mean, like I said, every game I think that. And then, of course, I know that all the coaches are working together to do what they can for the community. And, of course, after the tragedy, they wanted even more. The players always want it. And they haven't been to a bowl game in, I believe it's 10 years, since 2013. So I think that they definitely can. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did.
It'd be kind of the cherry on top of the sundae, right? If they were able to win this bowl game and win their last game of the year. But even if they don't win it, obviously, what an incredible year they've had, and it's been really exciting. Here's what I'm really disappointed in, and I'll go from the football aspect or the basketball aspect. There should be more fans at Allegiant Stadium. Let's start with the football program. And I blast the fans. I'm not talking about the students right now. We can get to that. The fact that they can't sell out the lower bowl at Allegiant Stadium for a team that's won how many games? 9? Is it 9 now? Is absurd. The San Jose State crowd was a joke. The Boise State crowd, in my opinion, it was better, but it was still a joke. I don't understand. This is a good football product. You can't say this isn't a good team. Years past, you could make that excuse. Fine. Doesn't excuse the students not showing up. But the fans that don't want to pay money, okay, fine. I'm with you. Not this year. I mean, am I wrong? Am I being too hard? There should have been more fan support for this team this year, in my opinion.
I always think there should be more fan support. Me, as a student, I have, of course, friends that don't go to the games. And it's crazy to me. I mean, of course, like we were talking about fans before students here, but fans, I mean, everybody would say, you'd see people on Twitter talking about UNLV football needs to win for them to show up. They're winning.
Yeah. And I listen, when Caleb Herring goes on the air and says we need 60,000 fans, that's absurd. I would never make that statement. With that being said, the lower bowl should have been sold out for those last 2 games of the year, especially the Boise State game when it's the conference championship game and the tickets are $20. It's ridiculous. With that being said, I'm going to criticize the students, not you, but some of the students for UNLV basketball games. Listen, the women should be a nationally ranked team. They just beat Ohio on the road. Coach LaRock has done a phenomenal job. The men's team has been struggling, and they've been struggling for a long time. With that being said, you go to an Air Force game. You go to a Boise State game. You go to a Nevada-Reno game. The students show up, no matter how bad or good the team is. I don't understand why the UNLV students don't show up to UNLV men's basketball games. I don't get it. You're a student. You're there. You cover the team. Maybe you could help me understand why. I don't get it. Why fans, or forget about the fans, the students on a Saturday afternoon can't show up to a game. I don't get it.
I can't really answer it for you either because I don't understand it either.
So you and I are agreement there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I really don't know why they don't. I mean, personally, like I grew up, like before I was a reporter, I grew up in a big sports family. Like my family loves sports. Like game day's a holiday. So it's like, why aren't you there? Why aren't you showing up?
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's like,
I'm not going to blast.
Not?
I'm not going to blast the fans for not going to men's games simply because. And now I love basketball. I'll always be there, but I'm not going to blast the fans. Listen, let's talk about the men's basketball team. Which games you've covered? You covered the game the other day where they lost to Loyola Marymount. They have some talent. They're young, but they're not that young. They have a lot of transfers. This is Kevin Kruger's 3rd year. Tell me if you agree or disagree with me on this. I like Kevin, first of all. He's a good guy, wonderful family. His father is a legend. Kevin is an easy guy to root for. I love having him on the show. Class act. He's not getting it done. He's not getting it done. This is year 3. And when you're like on the bottom of the Mountain West Conference, which I think they might be, there's a lot of teams. Listen, Nevada-Reno, better. Boise State, better. San Diego State, better. Colorado State's top 25 in the country, better. Utah State, better. This is his 3rd year now. So I don't think you can use any excuses. Am I wrong in saying that Kevin needs to put a stamp on this season, get in the NIT, get in the NCAA tournament, maybe the NIT, compete in the Mountain West Conference, be one of the top 3 or 4 teams to keep his job?
I think that he is a good coach, and I do think that he can turn the season around. I mean, there's still a lot of season left. I do comparatively think about it in the terms of how Odom came in and flipped the script, but I wouldn't necessarily say I don't really have an opinion when it comes to whether or not his job is on the line.
What would you consider a good UNLV basketball season this year? What does he need to do for you to say that was a good year?
I mean, I feel like it's the same for everybody. Like, if they win, more people are going to show up. Well, that's what people say. But to say the least, I mean, of course, like everybody wants a winning team. And I think like if he comes in and changes the rest of the script for the season, then that would probably be under my consideration of that was a good year.
Changing the script, what does that look like? Competing for a title, some sort of postseason invite. What does that look like for you?
I would just say having a winning record. For me, I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, we've seen the team so far. It's not necessarily about what, it's more of regular season, what the record is.
Let's just assume for a moment, and by the way, you're very right. There's a lot of basketball to be played, and he has the time to flip the script. You're right about that. I don't disagree with you. But let's hypothetically say that doesn't happen. Let's just say he finishes 6th or 7th in the Mountain West Conference. Maybe they're in the playing game in the Mountain West Conference tournament. You think he deserves to come back for year 4?
Again, not my opinion.
Yeah.
I won't speak on it.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm going to say no. A lot of people, going back to the football program, there are a lot of people in this town, I know you weren't one of them, that thought Coach Arroyo deserved to come back. Caleb Herring on social media, and we get into it all the time when it comes to sports and debates or whatever you want to call it. He said that in Arroyo's last year, he's doing a good job. Now, I don't think there's any reasonable person away from UNLV that was just watching from the outside looking in that thought the same way. But I think we all could agree that it paid dividends for the UNLV football program when your athletic director said, okay, going to bring in another guy, brought in Odom. If Arroyo was still here, I don't think they have half the wins they have now. Odom, what a phenomenal hire, right? So we'll have to wait and see. I guess the point I'm trying to make is Odom proved that he can turn a program around that's been for decades not very good in 1 year if you hire the right guy. My opinion is I like Kevin. Don't think he's the right guy. I don't know if he's ready yet. And I don't think it should be really hard to recruit at UNLV, in my personal opinion, if you do it the right way. I'm rooting for Kevin. I hope it works out. I hope he wins some games. So you were at the game the other day, Loyola Marymount. I wasn't there. I was actually at the NBA games. But, what did you see in that game?
They just had a consistent 3-point lead over us throughout the entire game. I believe it was, I think if I remember right, it was 3 to 4 times they had a 3-point lead over us at maybe official timeouts.
Couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah, they just couldn't capitalize on the opportunity.
Is it weird to see UNLV playing in Henderson in that arena?
Yeah, personally, I live close to campus, so
Right.
I love that it's at Thomas and Mack Center because it's very short. Just go down the street road,
Yeah.
But driving all the way to Henderson, I don't like driving. I'm not a big fan of driving, but yeah,
It's out there,
of
right?
course, I love the Dollar Loan Center. I think it's a very nice arena.
You didn't go to UNLV football games when they were
No, I wasn't
near the
here
Boulder
yet.
Highway, so you're lucky there.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. It's a little weird. The rodeo's in town. It's great
Yeah,
for the
for sure.
economy, so we know that. All right. With that being said, Wednesday night, a game that you'll be at, I'll be there. The 10th ranked team in the country is in
Right.
town. Creighton is a very good basketball team. Does UNLV have a? Now, I asked you about the football team, and I like your answer because I agree with you. They have a chance to beat anybody on their schedule, and they pretty much have. They've only lost to several games all year. But with the basketball team, call me negative. I don't think they have a chance to win this game. What do you say?
Again, don't really have an opinion on it. I am not a negative person. I am very much so optimistic. And so, with that being said, I do think it's going to be a challenge. I mean, a ranked opponent, that's always going to be a challenge. But
It's also an opportunity, though, right?
yeah, I mean, of course they could come in
If
and
they do something
win.
miraculous and win
Yeah,
this
you
game,
never know.
then it can completely change their season, right?
Yeah.
This is a big game on their schedule. Loyola Marymount, I think what really put them behind the 8 ball, and I think you'll agree with me on this, was the Southern loss. You can't lose that basketball game. Loyola Marymount, they're an average team, but Southern is a really bad basketball team. You can't lose that game at home, and I think that really put them behind the 8 ball. But with that being said, now they have an opportunity. As bad as that Southern loss was, this would be just as good of a win, right? If they could somehow beat Creighton. Who do you think is like their go-to guy? Because, I've had conversations with people about this. Who is the guy that you want with the basketball with 10 seconds left to go with down by 1?
Luis Rodriguez.
Scott, I agree with you on that. Not a lot of people talk about him, but I completely agree with you. First of all, he's not a freshman. He's a big body. He can score in the paint. He can also shoot from the outside. He can also create his own shot. So I agree with you. I want him to take more shots. I don't think he takes enough shots. I want to see more offensive sets and getting him the ball because he's got a really good mid-range game too. I agree with you on that. I think where they might struggle throughout the year is guard play. They don't really have a guard. They have guards that can create for themselves Webster's a really good shooter, by the way, and he's a veteran. He's been on this team, and he knows what it takes to win. But you need guards that can facilitate and handle the ball. And I see a lot of these teams pressing them. They don't have great ball handling and facilitators. And I think in the Mountain West Conference, in college basketball as a whole, you need that. I think that's one of their weaknesses. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like there just needs to be more communication, more aggression.
Yeah. That's
what I would emphasize on. As from my standpoint, that's what I feel like that would be more, that would be helpful. And of course, like communication, like I'm close to the court, I hear it, but I do think there should be more. But I mean, I'm always, no matter what, I'm always going to say that a sports team needs more communication, whether they're on 10 with communication or whether they're on 0. I'm going to always say that they need more communication.
I mean, what do you make of what San Diego State did last year, the basketball team? I mean, what a phenomenal year they had, winning the conference, getting to the finals of the NCAA tournament. I think Dutch is such a great coach. And I say to myself when I was watching that, why can't UNLV be there? I'm not saying you expect to make it to the NCAA championship game every year, but why can't UNLV be that competitive? Why can't the basketball team compete for Mountain West Conference championships every year like when Lon Kruger was coaching? I know you weren't here back then, but I'm old. But I don't think there's any reason why they can't. You know, when I see San Diego State do what they did last year, right?
Yeah, I'd love to see UNLV at that level, but right now I think the focus point is having a winning record at the end of the season.
I hope so. I hope they get to that point. Like I've said, I don't expect them to win the conference or do anything crazy, but compete. And if you're above 500, be above 500 in the Mountain West Conference, which I think they should absolutely be able to do, and be in that conversation in the first week of March, where you're in the conversation, you know. And I think if he can do that, then come back for year 4 and let's see what he can do. But I just don't know. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. One thing you are absolutely right about is there's a lot of basketball to be played. We're not even in conference play yet. But this is a huge game on Wednesday night. I would imagine the crowd the other night wasn't great.
It was actually better than I expected.
Was it? How many people were there?
I couldn't tell you that, but
it's a nice little arena. I like that arena.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit smaller than Thomas and Mack, so it might have felt a little bit more like the crowd was there. But I do think the crowd, I think they showed up a pretty decent amount, given the fact that it wasn't at Thomas and Mack Center. And of course, like it was a red out. Everybody was wearing red. So,
well, hopefully we'll get a big crowd on Wednesday. We know the Creighton fans travel pretty well. So I'd imagine there'd be some blue in there too. But, well, I will say this in closing, Mia. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry what you had to go through on Wednesday, but I do appreciate you sharing your story. Glad you're okay. And, you know, my thoughts are with you, all of your friends, anybody on campus, anybody that was affected by this. My thoughts are with you all. I will say this right now, and I say this truthfully. Right now, as a 20-year-old sports reporter, you are better than a lot of people in this town that are getting paid to cover sports in this town. I will say that right now 100% with a straight face. First of all, I mean it. You're very knowledgeable. And second of all, there are people in this town that do not know what they're doing, and you are not one of them. So I hope you take one of their jobs eventually because you will deserve it. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I know one day when I'm like 60 years old, I'll be seeing you on the sidelines of an NFL football game as a sideline reporter, and I will be saying to myself, she did my show when she was 20 years old, Sonny, and I'll be like a senior citizen, and I'll be proud of you. But you're off to a great start, and you're really good at what you do, so keep doing your thing, and you're welcome back anytime. Maybe we can have you in studio again, maybe before the Mountain West Conference tournament, and maybe preview that or something. So I appreciate you being here, Mia. Thank you so much. How can people follow you on social media and all that stuff?
You can follow me on all social medias at @MiaGreen_sports, which is my first and last name, MIAGREEN_sports.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'll see you Wednesday night when
we'll see you
UNLV
Wednesday
plays
night.
Creighton in Henderson. That's so weird to say that. Appreciate Mia being here. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Chris Winn will be joining us in studio. Chris has been doing sports longer than Mia has been alive. Boy, Chris is older than I am. How's that? We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this, Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super hero, that is, because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent, on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Locally owned and operated, come on down to Academy of Hair Design located at 5191 West Charleston Boulevard, number 150 today to begin your career in cosmetology. There is something for everyone from cosmetology to nail technology. You will be able to have the hands-on training that is needed to succeed in this career field. Call 702-878-1185 or visit www.ahdvegas.com today.
The London Bridge Resort in Lake Havasu is the perfect place to vacation in style. Their beautifully designed suites include stunning views, a kitchenette, and free Wi-Fi. The well-reviewed and affordable resort has tons of amenities, including a breakfast buffet, kids camp, a 9-hole golf course, 3 pools, a marina, boat tours, a water slide, and a great nightlife scene. London Bridge Resort is centrally located in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. Go to londonbridgeresort.com to plan your getaway today. London Bridge Resort, your Arizona oasis destination.
Coach Harvey Hyde is heard right here on KSHP North Las Vegas, AM and FM, K29 6HP North Las Vegas, and KSHP.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Getting to the sports aspect of things in a moment here, but oh boy, we got a big MAGA Republican that's coming in studio tomorrow. His name is Drew Johnson. He's friends with Adam Laxalt and all the MAGAs in this, in this state, and he's trying to become your next congressman. He has agreed to come in studio, and I think tomorrow could be very, very interesting. So look forward to that for sure. Alex Jones is now back on X, formerly known as Twitter. His ex-wife has something to say about that. She's going to be joining us on the show Wednesday. So we got great guests lined up for you the rest of the week, and we got one in studio right now wearing his bright red UNLV collared shirt. Of course, I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the professional fade handicapper himself. He doesn't like it when I say that. It's not always true. He does get them right from time to time. Chris Winn joining us in studio. Chris, what's up?
Brian, it's good to be here as usual on a Monday. Of course, the events that transpired here the last few days, obviously a good discussion that you had there with Mia. And a couple of quick notes. Obviously, you and I got a chance to cover the Vegas Golden Knights game last night, right? Where the Golden Knights got the win over the San Jose Sharks. But post-game, First off, fitting tribute by UNLV. Props to them, the organization, as well as the staff there at T-Mobile Arena for their tribute as far as the victims of the shooting at UNLV. And, of course, National Finals Rodeo as well, too. An excellent tribute, given that that's taking place also at the Thomas & Mack Center, which is why the UNLV basketball team is not going to be back there till later on next week. So they did a tremendous tribute as well, too. And then post-game, Brian, both Jack Eichel as well as Jonathan Marchessault and Braden McNabb weighed in with their sentiment regarding the shooting at UNLV, and then Bruce Cassidy in the press conference. Obviously, Bruce does a press conference after every game, and our colleague Alan Snell actually asked him a pointed, direct question regarding his thoughts when it comes to gun control and things like that. And credit to Bruce Cassidy, actually did talk about it and in detail addressed it straight up, which is the way that Bruce is, right? I mean, he's a guy that will have unload his comments when it comes to any topic, and he was straightforward with his opinions. I'll quickly paraphrase, basically talking about how politicians, public servants need to get squared away, right?
Yeah.
And that's what their job is. That's what they're paid to do, and make decisions, because it's clearly not working in America.
I agree.
Today.
And I asked,
and that was pretty much his sentiment.
I asked LeBron James that at one of his press conferences, and some coaches as well, and they all gave very good, eloquent answers, and I certainly appreciated that. The NBA did a great job too. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA. It was like a dream come true for me to be able to watch the games on the court, and sitting with some pretty prominent people. But just from a basketball standpoint, I've never sat on the floor for an NBA basketball game, so that was incredible, especially games of this magnitude. From my perspective, and I think from the players' perspectives and the coaches, they've had nothing but great things to say about this tournament, nothing but great things to say about Las Vegas. Everybody was competitive. Everybody played hard, except for maybe Zion Williamson. That's another story. But who Stephen A. Smith, by the way, called a fat ass on social media, which he is, by the way. So I agree with Stephen A. Smith. But Lakers ended up winning it. 4 really good basketball teams. Indiana really impressed me. Lakers, LeBron and AD, they were just way too good. Fun to see not just an NBA preseason game here, but a game that actually means something. Somewhere in between a regular season NBA game and the playoffs, maybe somewhere in between there. Guys were playing hard. And I thought it was a really, really great experience for me personally. It made me fall in love with the NBA again. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I love basketball, but I haven't always loved the NBA regular season product. I feel like, I don't like guys sitting on the bench. I don't like it when they're not playing hard. And maybe there's too many games. But with that being said, I haven't been a huge fan lately. Chris, I grew up, idolizing Larry Bird, the late 80s, those Celtic teams. I was very young, but I still watched it, with my family. And since then, since I moved to Las Vegas, at least, I haven't really been as big of an NBA fan. And this kind of made me love the NBA again. It was just such an incredible couple days. I can't say enough good things about Commissioner and just the NBA as a whole. They just do things the right way, man. And all these players, it's just so not everybody liked David Stern. All these players are on board with the Commissioner. They get along with him. LeBron James called him brilliant. It's just so great to see a Commissioner have that type of relationship with stars in the NBA. And, man, it was so much fun, Chris. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I had so much fun, and the NBA did it the right way. And it was great for the city, and it was great for the NBA.
Yeah, Brian, it was yet another opportunity, right, for the NBA to be showcased on a big stage here in Las Vegas, and a chance to it's a prelude, basically, to not a matter of if, but a matter of when we actually get an NBA franchise here in Las Vegas. With respect to the actual games that were played here, it was absolutely an opportunity for us to kind of see a young superstar in Tyrese Halliburton for the Indiana Pacers kind of be on display.
Star in the
and
making,
it was kind of like a coming out party for him. It really was. He's been great all season long, but really when it came to the national exposure, when it came to ESPN and ABC, getting a chance to see a guy for a franchise like that really hasn't, since Reggie Miller was there, really hasn't had that guy. They have that guy now, and so it's good for the NBA to see that bring itself into fruition here in Las Vegas. You talked about the Lakers winning. I mean, that's kind of a, that's a storybook thing for Vegas. I mean, Vegas it's a Laker town. We don't have a team here, right? So, I mean, you reflected on it as far as us being basketball fans. We don't cover a team here in Vegas yet. There's not an NBA team here yet. So it is great to see the NBA product here in town. And like I said, it's just a matter of time before we actually have a franchise here.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see when and if that happens. But, yesterday, getting a chance to meet Gary Payton, somebody I grew up with and loved watching him play the game, one of the best guards to ever play the game. I don't think that's up for debate.
No doubt, yeah.
And, just being able to text him yesterday.
Mitch Richmond here, too. Dr. J in the house. Shaquille O'Neal.
Yep.
Right? A lot of big stars from past and present.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on this. When I name you these names, who doesn't belong? Ahmad Rashad, Mitch Richmond, Gary Payton, Vivica A. Fox, and Brian Shapiro.
I know exactly where you're going here, and it's absolutely B-Shap. No disrespect, sir. No disrespect, young man. But, yeah.
I don't disagree with you.
When all of us fellow sports media members here in Vegas are turning on the TV, Numchuck and PTL Nation and gentlemen, and I see all these, let's be honest, superstars, right, on the court. And there's only a handful because there's there's 15, 20,000 or whatever in the building.
There are not a lot of court
how many there ever was? But only on the court there was like 10 people that were not members of the Milwaukee Bucks or the Indiana Pacers on the court. And you see Shapiro rolling up there. He's got a sport coat on. He's got his getup going. I was and I'm watching on ESPN, and they're cutting away because Reggie Miller was doing the broadcast, right? And Vivica A. Fox, your friend who was on the court, is from Indiana, from Indianapolis, I believe. That's where she's from.
Yep.
She's basically an ambassador for the NBA, and they're talking about the NBA All-Star Game, right, and all that. And you've got Reggie Miller talking about Vivica, and you got Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits sitting down there courtside. Yeah, it was rather hilarious.
I'm listening to
Gary. It had to be a great experience for you. Great experience.
Yeah, I'm listening to Gary Payton throughout the game talking trash. Gary Payton's known as one of the best trash talkers in the history of the NBA, and he's talking a lot of trash to some of the Milwaukee Bucks players. And why am I forgetting his name now? The guy they just got from the Blazers.
Damian Lillard?
Why did I forget his name?
Yeah.
Drawing a blank here. And he's talking trash to Damian Lillard on the court. And all these players know who Gary Payton is. So
of course.
It's not like some fan talking to. So they're all responding to him. I got Giannis. He was a little injured. So every time out, he's literally standing 2 feet away from me for every time out. And I'm like, I had Vivek. I said, Vivek, can you take a selfie? I don't really do selfies, but I'm like, can you just take a picture of me right now? Because Giannis is like a foot away from me, closer to him than I am to you right now. Sitting on the court is a whole nother perspective, even if you're second or third row. When you're sitting on the court and I'm right next to the bench and I'm right behind the coach, you hear and you see everything. Adrian Griffin, head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks.
By the way, former Boston Celtic that you kind of grew up watching. Yes.
Former Hartford Hellcat who Paul McKeskey coached, by the way. Don't know if you knew
and
that.
a quick note, too. So you're talking about Gary Payton, right? So Gary Payton has a local connection here in Vegas. He lived here for a handful of years. He has a house on the west side, from what I understand. He still has it. And his son, Gary Payton, the second, who actually plays the Golden State Warriors now, actually went to high school here in Vegas.
Yep.
And Gary's a guy that's been out at a lot of the watering holes, but where myself and our mutual friend Nilly and others have hung out at. So
good guy.
Super cool guy.
Super
obviously
cool.
A legend. You're talking about you pointed out he's one of the best guards of all time. And he had some great stories too, by the way, talking about your guy Larry Bird, as far as him being the ultimate trash talker. And we don't need to get into all that, but I
asked him, Chris.
There's a lot of connections is the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
I've learned two things from watching these games in Vegas. The two things I've learned, in my opinion, is this. The Indiana Pacers are for real, and they're a really good team. And Rick Carlisle is a really, really good coach. And the second thing I've changed my mind on, because I've said for a long time that I still didn't feel that LeBron James was a top 5 player. And I've changed my mind on that for this reason. At his age, he's almost 39, right?
Yeah.
He is faster and stronger still than most of these guys in the NBA in their 20s. And I watched it firsthand, and it's one thing to watch it on TV. But when you're right there, you see he has a different gear. And when he wants to take the ball to the basket, he can take anybody. and his outside game and his jump shot is much improved over the last several years. He is one of the top players in the league at almost 39 years old. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the championship. There's a lot of teams that are good, especially the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
But I'm putting him ahead of Kobe Bryant now, and I believe he is a top 5 player. I'm not willing to say yet he's the best player of all time. Now, why do I bring this up?
Well, that's the direction I was going to go. So I was going to bounce that off you because our buddy Marcus Banks thinks that he is the best player of all time. And I would, by the way, Brian, I'll be quick on this. I agree with you. Okay, I can live with that conversation. I can say, all right, LeBron James, yeah, I think he can be a top 5 player of all time, but there's no way in hell that I'm putting him number 1.
Well, there's a reason
He's not
why I
number
asked
1.
him. I agree
He's
with
not.
you. So we are in agreement there. So I asked Gary Payton. I'm talking to Gary Payton the whole game, and he's talking to me, right? And Vivica's right in the middle of us, and we had some fun.
Well, you got Vivica Fox
There's
next
some,
to you.
there's some things that we
Might
were
be
saying.
some motivation there.
There's some things that we were saying that I cannot repeat on the air. But I asked him. I said, Glove. I said,
you're calling him Glove?
Yeah. Who's the best player of all time? Is it Michael Jordan or is it LeBron? And he gave me a really good, eloquent answer. And I'm going to quote what he said because I remember it. And he probably gave me the best answer of anybody that I've asked.
It's not between Michael Jordan and LeBron,
So let me tell
though.
you what he said.
It's not between those two.
Okay, well, that's what I asked him. I said,
Yeah.
who's the best player of all time? And the two names that he came up with, Michael
Kareem?
Jordan, LeBron, no, it's not Kareem. So,
Kareem's number 2 in my book.
well, but he's not the best. But anyway, here's the answer he gave me. He said, if you're talking about just killers, guys that you want the ball with 10 seconds to go, guys that are clutch, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird, maybe even Magic Johnson. He hit a lot of big shots. But if you're talking about, and this is what he said, an overall basketball player, all-round player, it has to be LeBron James. And I thought about that for a second. And listen, this is the Glove talking to me, right? One of the best point guards of all time. And I said, gosh, that makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about the best player of all time, I'm not saying I'm there yet with LeBron.
Right.
But what I am saying is I understand why people would say that. When you look at his age and his body, I mean, listen, I'm a couple feet away from him for 2 games. And I'm looking at the physical specimen and how he takes care of his body. And I look at when he wants to take the ball to the basket. You won't see that LeBron in most regular season games. You saw it this weekend in Vegas because he wanted to win badly. It's hard for me to disagree with that. Michael Jordan was one of the most clutch NBA players of all time, and I'm still going to put him right now as the best player of all time. LeBron, what he is doing at his age is ridiculous. Jordan would have never been able to have done it at 38 or 35. LeBron's doing it at almost 39 years old. He is playing at such a high level. Did you see the game he had on Thursday?
Yeah.
The guy could have... The guy could have scored 60.
He's doing things, and look, let's be intellectually honest here, right? This is 2023, okay? So advancements when it comes to how you can take care of yourself. And by the way, I give credit to LeBron where credit is due. He has been someone who has been meticulous when it comes to his diet, when it comes to preparation, right? Keeping his body in shape. He is excellent at that. But the comparison with Michael Jordan, look, to me, it starts and ends with this. Look at the resumes. That's all I have to say. When it comes to Michael Jordan and LeBron James, take a look at the full resume, and you can ask some very simple questions. Who's a better offensive player, Brian Shapiro?
At what age?
No. Who is the best overall, okay, between Michael Jordan and LeBron James? Who is a better offensive player?
I would say right now, Michael Jordan.
Okay. Who is a better defensive player?
You could make the argument LeBron James. You could
No, absolutely not. It's Michael Jordan. It's not even. Yeah, it's Michael Jordan. That one's not even. Look, you could make a closer argument that LeBron's better offensively than Jordan, not defensively though. Defensively, Jordan is hands above LeBron James.
What I watched from a 38-year-old LeBron James the last couple days.
Who has more MVP?
He made Zion.
Who has more MVP?
Hold on. He made Zion Williamson look like a school child.
Who has more MVPs?
The other day. Michael Jordan.
Who has more championships?
Michael Jordan.
Who has a better record when it comes to the NBA Finals?
But I don't go by championships. And by that aspect, you can
it's a team game. I
Bill
get it.
Russell.
Yes, it's a team
Bill
game.
Russell's
I get it.
not the best player of
I'm
all
talking
time.
about resume, though, overall. And by the way, I used individual...
resume's not over yet for LeBron James. He's still playing basketball at a very high level. So I'm not willing to, when you talk about...
I'm just making the point. I'm just basically parroting what I've heard across the board from everybody except for... Now, by the way, to your point that you brought up, right, when you talked to the Glove... You talked to Gary Payton, and he said to you that he puts LeBron there, right? You know who agrees with Gary Payton? The NBA all-time great Oscar Robertson.
Let me ask you-
absolutely.
let me
And he
ask you a
frames
que-
it this way. And this I'll end. I'll stop and I'll go back to you. Oscar Robertson frames it by saying this. You mean to tell me you don't think LeBron James is the best player of all time? Really? After looking at what he's been able to do the last 15, 20 years? That's how he frames his statement, right?
Who was the best player on the second best player on the Cleveland Cavaliers when early in LeBron James' career he got them to the Eastern Conference Final? Can you name me who the second best player was or the third best player was?
Anderson Varejao?
Yeah, exactly. Michael Jordan had.
No, but you're killing your own argument. You brought it up 2 minutes ago how it doesn't matter teams what teams do.
No,
and
that's not what I said.
Team records.
That's not what I said.
Okay, so what did
I
you say
did say
then?
was I don't say the best basketball player of all time. It's just championships. If that was the case, Bill Russell.
Well, I didn't just bring
if
up
that was the-
championships. That was
okay,
one
hold
aspect.
on. That's
Yeah.
all I said there. Michael Jordan. Listen, LeBron had Dwayne Wade and Bosh in Miami. He's got some pretty darn good players in L.A. However, and he did have Kyrie Irving
In Miami, a ton of great players in Miami.
Hold on,
Chris
but
Bosh.
he got the Cleveland Cavaliers to the NBA Finals when his second option was a guy who was not very good in Mr. Varejao.
He got beat a lot in the playoffs with the Cavs, though, too.
Okay, but I'm saying he got that team far in the playoffs multiple years and got them to the NBA Finals. Michael Jordan always had a guy by the name of Scottie Pippen. That's all I'm going to say there. So we can agree.
And others, too. He had Ron Harper. He had some other pieces.
So we will
Rodman,
see. All I'm saying is I have turned the page on my opinions on LeBron. Because
So you think he's top five? Yeah. Makes sense.
He's absolutely a top five player, and I think there is a possibility when it's all said and done, could be the best basketball player of all time.
I gotta say, Brian,
I'm not there yet.
I still want to put Kobe ahead of him. I still do.
No, I'm not doing
Rest
that.
in peace,
as much
Kobe.
as I love
Rest
Kobe
in peace,
Bryant,
Kobe.
Kobe.
I still want to.
Kobe,
but Brian, I want to.
Okay.
I'm not saying I am.
I want to as
I'm
well.
just saying I want to.
By the way, I'm not a LeBron guy personally, but Kobe did not do this in his mid 30s. LeBron James did. And has and still is.
Well, all due respect, though, we're not just judging them on what they do when they're in their later years.
That's a part of it.
I mean,
that's a part of it. And
it's a part of it.
The level that LeBron is playing at right now, he's absolutely.
How many points did Kobe score in his last game?
Yeah, but that's
51.
That's absurd. That's absurd. That's absurd.
First of all, just toss that out there.
Okay, well that's absurd, Chris. That's absurd.
What do you mean absurd?
Here's why.
He scored 51.
Here's
points.
why.
He shot every shot. He took every shot.
First of all,
yeah, I get it.
If LeBron wanted to score 75 points on Thursday, he could have. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter. Number two.
Wait, time out. He's never scored over 50 in his or over 60 in his life. What's his career high?
Okay, hold on. Let me finish. There's a reason.
What do you mean? No. He hasn't done that.
There's a reason for that. LeBron is not looking to score 75. What I am telling you is in that Kobe Bryant game, he was trying to score as many points as possible. The defense was lackadaisical. They knew that it was Kobe's last game, and it wasn't a playoff game. It was a regular season game.
Utah Jazz.
I am telling you that the way LeBron was playing on Thursday in a blowout, if he had played 40 minutes, he would have scored over 50 points. I guarantee you 150%. We have to move on, though, because we have to talk UNLV hoops. I don't know. There's some stat that
Nunchuck's tossing a stat at you?
Larry Bird today it's his birthday, so Larry Bird.
Is it?
Larry Bird's 85 today, so happy birthday, Larry Bird. The legend, Larry Legend. All right, Chris. So disappointing loss, UNLV hoops. I want to touch on that real quickly, and then we got to take a break. They lose to Loyola Marymount in Henderson at the Dollar Loan Center. UNLV is now under 500. That loss to Southern certainly didn't help. And here's something else, Chris, that nobody's really talking about. Colorado State is a top 25 team in the country. Yeah. San Diego State, way ahead of UNLV. Boise State, ahead of UNLV. Utah State, ahead of UNLV. Nevada Reno, ahead of UNLV. UNLV right now is looking in the eye of a possible, and again, the conference hasn't even started yet. I get that. Is it out of the realm of possibility to think that UNLV could be in a playing game in the Mountain West Conference tournament? I think that's a definite possibility because the Mountain West is a lot better this year than I thought it was.
Oh, there's no question about that. They could absolutely be. Look, Brian, you and I have covered this team for a long time. We're not going to sit here and be, and speak out of turn and act like that could not happen. It absolutely could, right? We have had a chance to see kind of the blueprint for this team so far this season. We understand they've got some pieces that are nice. You like the Boone twins. You like what Rodriguez can bring to the table. Webster, obviously DJ Thomas is expected to be a big time player at the point guard position, right? And he ended up being their leading guy on Saturday with 17 and 8, but it wasn't enough.
Right.
It just doesn't mean, you kind of touched on this a little bit with Mia in the first hour, talking about, the prospects when it comes to Kevin Kruger, right? I happen to agree wholeheartedly with you on this point. I think it was too soon for Kevin Kruger to get this job at UNLV. He should have ended up at a place maybe in the Sun Belt or some smaller conference, right? The Todd Simon route, right, with Southern Utah or a school like that where you cut your teeth, you get some experience, you're able to kind of work things out from you're able to kind of get some seasoning as a head coach at the college level. This is not a program, and we're not going to sit here and act like UNLV is Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina, but it's still not a start off your career program as a head coach. It just isn't. And I think that's kind of played out for Kevin so far. Look, we're not writing the season off by any stretch of the imagination, but it has been clearly evident this has more likely a makings of a team that will be an also-ran this season than a team that will necessarily contend for a Mountain West championship.
And then, Chris, I agree with you. And then we agree with UNLV basketball. And then, Creighton coming to town, 10th ranked team in the country. I think UNLV's in a lot of trouble. What are they now? 9th? Are they 9th now? Wow.
Yeah, so they moved up.
Well, listen, McBucket's dad is doing a pretty good job. With that being said,
what do you think the line's going to be, Brian Shapiro, on that line?
Good question.
I want to say I want to put it at like 19 or 18,
No,
but
I don't
it
think
might
it's going to
be
be
higher.
high. No,
right?
I don't think it's going to be that high. I think 14.
You don't?
14 and a half. Yeah,
Wait, you think it's that low?
14 and a half. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But Chris, listen, Mia is great. I loved having her in. I do disagree with a few things. I don't think a 500 team is in year 3 is enough for Kevin to come back next year. That's just my personal opinion. I have some multiple. Listen, let me be very clear on this. I root for Kevin. I root for UNLV. He's a great guy. I don't think they're going to be top 4 in the conference this year. I don't.
It'd be very difficult. Let's
Yeah.
put it that way.
Yeah.
And by the way, I would concur with that assessment. I think he'd have a better chance to maybe survive as a 500 team if Eric Harper, he was his guy, right? If Eric Harper actually hired Kevin Kruger, and so Harper had his name on it, I think there would be a better chance that could happen, that he could still keep the gig. But that being said, he's not Eric Harper's guy.
I got 2 names.
So,
and people are going to disagree with me on this. 2 coaches, and again, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I'm rooting for Kevin. I hope he has a good year, and I want him to be here, but I just don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I got 2 names I'm going to throw out there.
Okay.
They're both old school coaches, both controversial. That would, in my opinion, would be the perfect fit. I'll even go with 3, but the third one's probably not realistic. The third one would be Rick Pitino, but he's at Iona now.
We'd love to have him here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not realistic.
From a basketball
I'm
standpoint.
going to give you another one that some people might not think would be realistic. Coach Wright, former Villanova coach.
National championship coach.
He's retired, but he's going to come back, in my opinion. I've talked to people that know him. He wants to coach again. He actually interviewed for the head coaching job here not that long ago when he was still coaching, believe it or not. He had some interest, and he used to be an assistant here, and he loves Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 old school coaches. Larry Eustace, who is an assistant at Boise State right now. I know he wants to coach again. He would be a perfect fit for Las Vegas. I know people are going to hammer me for saying this, but Bobby Huggins, I know he had his DUI, and this city might not be great for him. He's a personality. Here's what we need. We need a personality and someone that is a proven winner. And both Bobby Huggins and Larry Eustace are both personalities, and they are by far proven winners.
When it comes to basketball, I'd be on board when you're talking Bobby Huggins and you're talking Rick Pitino. But just from a Vegas standpoint, right? I don't know about Bobby Huggins here in Vegas, right?
Oh, I get that.
And you understand why,
Yeah,
right?
I get that.
And,
I get that, but I'm just saying.
But from basketball standpoint, no doubt that those 2 guys would be
Chris,
viable.
we need a
I'll
controversial
recycle
guy.
a name for you. I'll recycle a name that I brought up, by the way, the last 3 times there's been coaching vacancies.
Marvin Menzies?
Nope. Steve Lavin. Labs. I've always Steve Lavin.
I like
To me,
Steve.
I think he'd be perfect fit here from a personality standpoint.
All right, from a personality
A West Coast recruiting standpoint.
See when? From a personality standpoint, I'm with you 150%.
Yeah.
By the way, I like Steve. He's done the show before. I don't know if he's a good enough basketball coach. But and I've heard from other coaches, his X's and O's. And recruiting, absolutely. Yeah. I think he would be another Dave Rice. He'd get us to the NCAA tournament. He wouldn't win any games. I don't think he's a very good head coach. Good recruiter, personality. we'll have to wait and see what happens. But with that being said, we do have other sports to get to, Chris. Wonderful NFL football game yesterday. Really entertaining game.
I sense some sarcasm. The sarcasm meter is jumping through the roof, Shapiro.
Yes.
On PTL right about now.
The Knights scored more goals than the Raiders scored. By the way, if the Knights scored one goal, that would have been more than the Raiders lost in what arguably is not only the worst NFL game in the history, but probably the worst Raiders game in Raider history. And embarrassing is one way to describe it. So I figured, what better person to talk about that, Chris, than Scott Gulbransen, co-creator of the Silver and Black Today, who's going to be joining us. But before we get him, Chris, just quickly, your synopsis of the game yesterday.
It was absolutely, in my humble opinion, as someone who's watched NFL football for a better part of 4 decades, it was the worst football game I've ever seen. I mean, it was just flat out that's what it was. You can't get a worse score other than if there was a safety in the game and it was 2-0. That's the only worst score you could get.
Yeah.
But from particularly from an offensive standpoint, it was something that
it was disgusting.
Just rattled the cage of all things NFL and being watchable.
And I think it speaks volumes as to
it was brutal.
Volume, I agree.
And I can't wait to talk to Gully about this because
Yeah.
there's a couple things that we're going to have to address.
Oh, yeah.
Mainly his comments regarding the possible general manager, because that's been getting a lot of
Yes.
run on social media for Gully throughout this past week, and other things when it comes to the Silver and Black.
So the co-creator of the Silver and Black Today podcast, by the way, I was watching his podcast last night after the game. I had to listen, and they were really spot on. Scott Gulbransen joining us right now. Scott, am I wrong? And by the way, thank you as always for joining us. Am I wrong in saying this is probably one of the worst games in NFL history yesterday?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was joking. I said to people that I feel like I had to cover soccer yesterday. You know, I never covered soccer in my life, but that's what it felt like. It felt like I had to sit there, and I was just waiting for somebody to yell, "Goal!" Because, 3-0 for Americans in American football is not going to cut it. But, it's 3 hours of our life we can't get back. And it was terrible to see coming off a bye, and there's just no real excuse for it.
Yeah.
And it's the Raiders continue to struggle on offense. There's no other way to say it.
So we'll get into the weeds, and we'll talk about how bad the Raiders were. But I have to ask you this question, because let's be honest, this wasn't a game that didn't mean anything. If the Raiders won yesterday, as you know, there's still a possibility that they're in the playoff picture. They still have a chance. So this was a meaningful football game. Explain to me why our interim coach, Coach Pierce, decided not to put Garoppolo in the game at all. You have a guy, $30 million man on the sidelines. There was nothing that O'Connell was doing, nothing that he was doing that would lead anybody to believe that he was going to march down the field and somehow miraculously win that football game. And Garoppolo's on the sidelines, by the way, healthy. And then Pierce said, didn't really respond to the question in the press conference. Oh, no, we're going with this guy. What the hell is Pierce thinking?
Okay, Brian. Serenity now. Serenity now. No, but listen, I think people are conflating two different issues with that as well, Brian, because they're saying, well, we're not going to get anywhere with Garoppolo. We don't need, and it's not about starting Garoppolo. It's what you saw O'Connell do for the Vikings.
Right.
Their offense was not moving the ball. So what do? They got to try something different. It's a 0-0 game. And I'm not saying maybe Garoppolo comes out and throws a pick and it's, see, I told you so, and that's fine. But you have to look at it. And this goes back to game planning. This goes back to being a head coach and having to adapt to what's going on in the game. And again, everybody likes Antonio Pierce, but at the end of the day, he's now gone 2-3. He's lost 3 in a row. And a lot of the in-game decisions, a lot of his fans want to blame Bo Hardigree, the offensive coordinator. And sure, there's some blame there too. But overall, it was a poorly managed game. We've seen that in the last 3 games when they've played tough teams. And so you're getting what you get, which is a guy who's learning on the job.
So, Gully, to Brian's point regarding Aiden O'Connell. So, in the post-game press conference, right, our colleague Willie Pops Ramirez asked a flat-out, in-the-face question to Aiden O'Connell, basically saying, hey, do you think that you're the guy? Do you think that you're the man? And Aiden's response wasn't great, Gully, and I got to get your take. Essentially, it was... kind of a little bit of a deflection and then a reference into, hey, we got to be able to execute better. Execute better, Scott Gulbransen? They scored 0 points. The Minnesota Vikings, They are formidable defensively, but they are not the 85 Chicago Bears. They're not the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, okay? The idea that you're going to come out of a bye week and put up a donut against that team at home at Allegiant Stadium, I'm sorry, but maybe I'm being hyperbolic here or a little bit over the top. I have a feeling that heads do need to roll, and there does need to be some type of, call it what you want, drastic changes as they're 4 days away from a matchup against the Chargers on Thursday night.
All of these men got put into these positions because of a terrible thing that happened, and that was Josh McDaniels, right? So Josh McDaniels gets run out. You ask Antonio Pierce, because he had brought the players together, I think it was the right choice. Remember, you skipped over Patrick Graham, who's a defensive coordinator, who, by the way, has done the best job of any coach on that staff this year to get his defense to play as well as they can with the talent he has. So he deserves a lot of credit. But they skipped over him and they went to Antonio Pierce because of that bond he had built with the locker room. It was the right move. I don't have any problem with that. But clearly, you do not have the people in place to be able to move this team forward. You got the locker room together. Great. That's only one piece. You have to win football games. This is not about, hey, we like the guy because he drives a 64 Impala, he listens to NWA, and he grew up in Compton, and he's a Raider fan. That has nothing to do with it. That's a nice little factor. It's a nice side story. But at the end of the day, it's about winning football games in the NFL. And if you want to be a championship team, remember, Al Davis didn't say, hey, just hire your own people, baby. He said, just win, baby. I'm seeing people out there telling me, well, they're competitive. I'm like, competitive, scoring 0 points off a bye? That's like in basketball, taking a timeout and coming out and throwing the ball out of bounds. You have no plan. You have no way to do anything. So to me, there's a little bit of hypocrisy because you like somebody does not make them the best candidate for head coach. And you can't blame it on his people. He is the CEO of the football team on the field, and they came out flat. They came out unprepared, and that was the result.
If you're just joining us, Scott Gulbransen, co-creator of the Silver and Black Today podcast. Yesterday was a disgusting football game. I don't care if you're a Vikings fan. If you spent money as a Vikings fan and you came out here, hotel travel, and you saw that game, I'd want to vomit. I think the most entertaining part of the game was probably in between the action and timeouts and the live music, and that can't happen. That's an embarrassment. With that being said, now I keep hearing some Raider fans on social media saying they should tank so they can get a top 5 draft pick. Gully, what are your thoughts on that?
Easy for people to say tank. Those same people are saying hire Antonio Pierce. Do you think Antonio Pierce is going to lose 5 in a row to lose the season and get the job? No. So it's a weird dichotomy going on there. But no, listen, these guys are all fighting for the job. They don't know where they're going to be coaches next year. So they want to stay if they like the Raiders organization. So you don't try to tank, but what you do, and we talked about this on our show for tomorrow, which is you have to evaluate what you have. If Champ Kelly gets the job full-time as GM, then he needs to understand who on his roster is worthy of carrying forward next year. He needs to make up his draft list. He needs to get prepared for the offseason for free agents. So you need to get some of these young guys like Justin Nate Savera out there, Byron Young out there, and find out what you have so that you can go into the offseason prepared to make moves.
Perfect segue, Gully, because I got to get your consensus, right, and kind of your viewpoint of what's transpired here in the last handful of days, right, because you have been someone who's expressed your sentiment when it comes to all things Champ Kelly, right, and his prospects as the general manager. Is it your view that what has transpired here the past 3 weeks when it comes to all things silver and black and Raiders football, that Champ Kelly has kind of either solidified or very much not solidified his position of possibly being the full-time guy?
If you look at Champ Kelly and the fact that Mark Davis had considered hiring him as the GM before he went with Dave Ziegler because he was so intent on hiring Josh McDaniels and they came as a package deal, I think Champ Kelly, you look around, and not just in Las Vegas, but go back, read during his time in Chicago. He's already interviewed 3 times for the general manager jobs, including in Atlanta. So this is a guy that's well respected around the league. It's not somebody who doesn't have experience. He has a lot of front office experience. And with everybody in those positions, yes, he's had some winners and he's had some misses. So you're going to have that. But I think if you look at the Raiders and where they're at, How much could he influence the roster? Not a ton, but like today, of course, he signed TJ Fluker, right? Who a little bit off the scrap heap, but at least he's trying to make moves to get this team a little bit more solidified towards the end. But if you look at who he is and what he does, I like him, and I say that's fine. Give him a shot at it if that is. And really, he's got to interview. Now, if somebody steps up, if Howie Roseman says, hey, if you're willing to give up a second or a first-round draft pick in 5 years to get me to come as GM because the Eagles still have him under contract, okay, then I would change my mind and say, let's go get Howie Roseman because I think he's the best in the business. But outside of that, you got to give him the chance. And I'm saying that if someone better doesn't step up, and that's not to demean in any way Champ Kelly or to say he's not a great choice. It's just we have to see what the candidate pool looks like. But I think he'll be near the top of that candidate pool no matter who shows up.
Yeah, I'm going to give you my prediction right now. After this disastrous performance over the weekend, Pierce has absolutely no chance to be the head coach of this football team next year. I'll start out by saying that. You hear a lot of rumors. Who could be the next coach? And I don't know what's true. I don't know what's not true. You hear rumors that Mark Davis wants John Gruden to come back if he drops his lawsuit. You hear rumors about Bisaccia. I have no idea. Can you tell us what is true, what is not true in your estimation?
Well, I can't tell you what's true or not true because none of us know, but I will tell you there is, John Gruden, Rich Bisaccia, come on, let's be serious here. That's not going to happen in any world unless you guys are eating magic mushrooms and sitting in the back of a room hanging out.
Chris
I
is.
do. Yeah, okay. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think if the Raiders do a search the right way, they will consider veteran coaches who have a chance. You have Jim Harbaugh out there. I don't think Jim Harbaugh comes to Las Vegas, but that's just me. But there's a lot of young guys. I will say this, and I had a story run today about the game where I said at the end of it that in today's NFL, you have got to find people who have offensive innovation at the top of their resume. They need to be people who understand the modern NFL offense and how it works. It doesn't mean you don't have to have defense. What it means, though, is if you look at what's happening in Miami, you look what's happening even with DeMarco Ryans in Houston, he's a defensive coach, but he's got offensive coaches who understand and are using a mobile quarterback. So you look at that stuff, and that's what I think the Raiders need to do. They need to find a quarterback, number one, and they need to find a coach who's going to develop an offense that's innovative, or you're going to never catch up in the AFC West.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. With that being said, final thoughts on the game Thursday. Obviously, the Chargers are coming to town, and they're an absolute mess of an organization right now, too, with injuries to boot. What do you make of this game and the Chargers coming to town for some Thursday night football?
Every time the Raiders and the Chargers hook up, it seems to be a very close game. And now you're going to have two quarterbacks that have not played well. Obviously, Herbert's out. So I think the Raiders have a chance, but every time I say that, they come out and they do worse than they did before. And remember, when Josh McDaniels got fired, they were scoring 16.5 points a game. They are now scoring 15.5. So they actually they've made worse on offense, right? So let's see what they can do. The Chargers defense is not terrible. It's pretty good. So if the Raiders offense can't move the ball, who knows? We might have another 6-3 game.
Oh God, don't do it.
And the one positive thing, right, that you can take from that game outside of the obviously the Hunter Renfrow big pass right there, right? That's one thing on offense. Obviously, is Max Crosby, right? That's the one thing, right. When you think about this game that transpired yesterday, Gully, it's what number 98 was able to do on the defensive side for the Raiders. I guess if you want to look at glass half full and something that you want to build on as they get set for this matchup on Thursday against the Chargers. They at least know that they got him in their camp.
Another thing, I want both of you guys to mock me on this one because I will admit this to both of you because I give Chris a hard time with some of his bets. I'm going to be completely honest with you now and transparent to both of you. I had a small wager on the over on the game yesterday. Ouch. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I really did. It was 40.5. And then I'm hanging out with my friend Brett Raymer, and we're watching the game with his family and with his son. And I'm like, guys, this might be the worst bet I've ever made in my life, and it turned out to be true.
And Gully, I put it up on X/Twitter last night. I don't know if you actually got a chance to see it. So as a Detroit Lions fan, obviously I was disgusted by what transpired in the Windy City yesterday with the Lions losing to the Bears, a team they have no business losing to. But then on top of it, just a matter of a few hours later, I get to see our division rival, the Minnesota Vikings, come here and win the most atrocious football game that NFL fans have laid eyes on in decades, probably. So it wasn't a great Sunday for Winn, Gully. I'm not going to lie to you.
That's funny.
No, and it might get rougher because, and I'm working on a story that's running on Wednesday about the Lions, because the Lions, who are going in the wrong direction, are going to face the hottest team in the NFL on Sunday, and that's the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Be a tough
Gully,
one.
you are the best, my friend, under very difficult circumstances. I wish we could be a little bit more positive with this team, but that game yesterday was just disgusting. But Scott, always a pleasure, my son. Always love your podcast. You do a great job, again, under very difficult circumstances, but you are honest, and that's why we always love having you on. Scott Gully Gulbransen, always appreciate the time, my friend. We'll let you get back to it, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gully.
I love Gully. He's one of my favorites, and another guy that I really like in this town that I have the utmost respect for, who covers the Raiders, and I think you know who I'm going to say, is JT the Brick.
Yeah.
And so I don't listen to a lot of radio in this town. For
just me and a couple other people, right?
Well,
Our guy Feldman and a couple of people. Oglesby, maybe on occasion.
All due respect to you guys, I do.
You got to listen to the greats in town, bro.
I listen to music because that relaxes me. When I hear you guys yelling at each other, it doesn't always relax me. No, but in all seriousness, I tuned into JT after the game because I want to know what he said. And, he was honest. He said he was almost speechless, and he's a radio guy. He said it was inexcusable, the performance yesterday. And he said a bunch of other things, too, that I agreed with. And, moving forward, I'm almost speechless. And I say to myself, the rest of the season, they're not really playing for anything. Maybe Pierce is playing for his job. But I'd be very worried about losing the locker room, even though Pierce is a former player and he's respected and all that stuff. What are these guys playing for now? I mean, they're well below 500. They're out of the playoff race. I would imagine a lot of these guys don't want to get hurt. They're not going to be playing at 100%. So, if I'm Mark Davis, the organization's making money, but your product stinks. And part of that is your fault. I like Mark Davis as a person. I spoke with Mark Davis over the weekend at the basketball games. Couldn't talk to a nicer guy. He's very nice, very cordial. He's great with people. He's just a good dude.
No doubt, yeah.
But he's not getting it done as an owner of an NFL franchise. He's making money from the business standpoint. He's getting it done, but from the actual product on the football field, it stinks. And JT made a really good point yesterday. Why? You have Josh Jacobs. Don't give me this crap about him being hurt. It was just one game yesterday. They stink. Josh Jacobs is a really good football player. Okay. You have Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in football. You have other guys out there on both ends of the ball that are really good, skilled players in very difficult positions that they are in. And I say to myself, I'm not saying they should be a Super Bowl contender, but with the talent they have out there on the field, they should be at least in the playoffs with the talent that they have. And to put up an egg at home against an average to below average football team that, in my opinion, is not very well coached either. What an utter embarrassment. I mean, that game was beyond an embarrassment. And I appreciate the fact that there are some people in this town, not many, that are willing to call a spade, and JT is one of those guys. And then, it's interesting because to go back to UNLV basketball, there's a broadcaster after the LMU loss that said, oh, well, they'll just build on this. I mean, what are you doing? What do you mean build on it? When you lose a game like that, whether it's LMU or Southern, or if you're the Raiders and you put up an egg, which I think is more significant,
right?
What are you talking about building on this? Get better. We'll get better.
Well, you got to consider the source, Brian, right? When you're talking about these broadcasters, right? Usually you're talking about the ones that actually work for the team, right? Or they actually work for the flagship. So they're going to look at things through rose-colored glasses. Let's be flat out honest about it, okay? That's the view they're going to take. If someone's going to wax poetic about UNLV after they have a 3-point loss to Loyola Marymount that doesn't have Hank Gathers and Bo Kimball, all right, they're going to be looking at it with a glass half full perspective. That's what they're going to be doing if you're going to talk positive about it, okay? With respect to the Raiders, you're talking about JT the Brick, right? JT, a guy who's He's invested. He's a Raider guy, right? He's worked for the Raiders, the television network
But
for
he's
years.
honest.
He's been a radio guy. No, but he's absolutely honest. Yes, he absolutely is. But if you're talking about the radio guys or the TV guys,
Can I bring something else
more the
up,
radio
though?
guys, because the
I
radio
get
guys
what you're
are doing
saying.
the games.
But
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're
saying.
saying.
So they're going to
but after
come
the
at it
Su-
from that
okay,
perspective.
Southern basketball, one of the worst college basketball programs in the country.
Absolutely, yeah.
The game that they lost against Southern, I'm talking UNLV hoops now,
Right.
is one of the worst losses arguably in UNLV basketball history. And after the game, a broadcaster said that there were some positives to take away from that game. You are an embarrassment to radio when you make a statement like that. There are ways, and I get what you are saying, Chris, where you don't have to blast a team, and you could be, maybe not as harsh as I am at times.
Exactly.
Okay.
As opinionated as we are, right? Because we lay it all on the line.
But
you put you wear your heart on your sleeve, my man. You do.
But with that being said, to say that there were any positives to take away from that Southern game, you are an embarrassment. There is a medium. You don't have to be as a critic as I am, and maybe as tough as I can be. I would call it being honest, but there's a way to do it and being honest at the same time. And there are broadcasters in this town that are embarrassing with the way they cover some of these local teams. They're embarrassing with the Kool-Aid that they drink, and they have zero credibility.
Okay, so let me bounce this off you, okay? Because we're rolling down to the end of the show here. So talking about the Raiders, right? Do you take away any positives from this game yesterday?
Yes.
Yes, you do. It's the defense, right? Defensively, right?
Max,
Defensively, you held the team. You held the Minnesota Vikings to 3 points.
You asked me. I'm not going to get carried away with.
Well,
this.
that's going to be my answer. If you want to ask me about what was positive about the Raider game yesterday for the Raiders, it was what they did on the defensive side of the football.
The defense did their job, but you're also playing an offensively incompetent football team that couldn't score against the Bears. Max Crosby had another phenomenal game. The defense did do their job. But that's going to be overshadowed by how horrible their offense was.
But I was just trying to make a point, right? I mean, you can
not
look at
a
game.
There's no positives in the Southern loss that UNLV.
No,
There's zero positives there.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you. You could say the defense did their job, or you could also say Minnesota's just a really bad offensively challenged football
Or you could
team.
say both.
You can say both, right? Correct. Yeah. But I think there's a fine line between saying that and giving the defense their dues, and then saying, as a broadcaster or whatever you are and you cover UNLV, to say that there are positives to take away from the Southern loss. There were no positives there. So there's a way to be honest, and there's a way maybe not to be too harsh, maybe somewhere in the middle. I'm saying that there are people in this town that don't do that. With that being said, UNLV plays Creighton on Wednesday.
So what do you think, Brian? Do you think there is a snowball chance in HE double toothpicks that UNLV?
No.
Hey, man. Hey, Brian. No. You and I have covered some UNLV teams that have been not so good, and they have knocked off top-ranked teams in the country.
Chris, to answer your question, I'm not even going to say to win. If UNLV wants to even be competitive, they're going to have to get a lot of help from Creighton. Some players are going to either have to get in some foul trouble. They're going to have to shoot 25% from the field, maybe in a half. That's the only way that UNLV is competitive. Why? Creighton has a couple guys that I think will be pros. They are very good underneath the basket. They have good guard play. They can shoot. They're quick. They're athletic. UNLV, in my opinion, is not going to – I've watched this team play. Mm-hmm. They're not going to – in my opinion, they're not going to be able to compete. Now, if they do something miraculous, let's just say.
Luis Rodriguez goes for like 25.
Okay, so the thing,
DJ Thomas has an 18 and 15 game.
But here's the thing, Chris. Back in the days when Dave Rice was coaching,
right,
when they knocked off North Carolina at the time,
that's kind of what I was referring to.
Here's
when they beat the number one Tar Heels.
Big difference
at the Orleans Arena, by the way.
Yeah, big difference. UNLV had professional basketball players. Mike Mosier, while he didn't play in the NBA, professional basketball player. Yeah. Rene Rougeau, a guy like that, professional basketball player. They had numerous guys on that team.
Bryce Dijon Jones?
I don't know if Dijon Jones. I'm trying to remember. Oscar Belfield was their guard.
Okay, yeah.
Good player. No. They had really, really athletic, good basketball players. And sometimes you can get away from the coaching and just pure talent. And North Carolina couldn't make a shot in that game. Okay. And to the credit of UNLV, they don't have that kind of team here. I can't name you one player. Could Rodriguez be playing in Europe somewhere? Maybe. But I don't think they have guys right now that you can make that case. That was a more skilled UNLV team. So to answer your question, yes, I don't think UNLV has a chance even to compete in this game. But we'll see what happens.
Raiders win against the Chargers Thursday here in Vegas.
Boy, I don't know,
It's a
Chris.
tough one.
That's tough.
Yeah, I know. So who's their backup in Los Angeles? Who's their backup quarterback?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Who was the backup yesterday? What was his name? Minnesota
I,
Viking.
for Minnesota?
He won the game
It
for
was
me.
Josh Dobbs.
He
Yeah,
marched
Josh
them
Dobbs.
down the field, and they kicked a field goal. He's the MVP of the league.
I can't believe Brandon Staley, the head coach
Yeah.
of the Chargers, still has a gig too. By the way.
All right,
Watch out,
I owe
coach
Chris.
is out the
I
door.
owe Chris some lunch. So thanks for joining us, everybody. You're going to want to listen tomorrow, Chris. MAGA supporter, very right
here we
wing.
go.
Drew Johnson is going to be joining us in studio tomorrow. Boy, that's going to be get ready to rumble. That's going to be fun. Alex Jones' ex-wife, Kelly, will be joining us on Wednesday. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for being here. Have a good day, everybody.